Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. In less than a week, Kingston elects a new mayor. Last week we spoke with Shane Gallo, the Democrat on the ballot. This week we will introduce you to two more of the candidates. Richard Cahill Jr., the Conservative running for mayor, will join us later. And joining us now is Steve Ladin and Jonesy of the Red Dog Party. Hi, Steve.
Hi, how are you doing?
And there's Jonesy, the title of the Red Dog Party, the inspiration of the name. But tell me how you ended up on the ballot for mayor in Kingston, because that's a little bit of a process.
Yes, well, when you have a dog, especially a dog as beautiful and wonderful as Jonesy, tend to walk around, and people tend to stop us in the street. That's how I met you, and they just want to say hello to Jonesy. And in that process, we got to speak with everyone. I mean, we met so many different people, and we began to talk about the different issues and problems that people were facing here in Kingston. So that was when we decided that, well, let's look at running for mayor, because it was something that I felt that I had some solutions for. So we went into the Board of Elections and found out exactly what we had to do in order to get on the ballot as an independent candidate. The name of the party is the Red Dog Party, named after, not Jonesy, named after Beckett, who was a red golden retriever. Beckett passed a year ago in October, and Jonesy came that November. He came and he rescued me. He arrived from Tennessee to rescue me, and it's been great ever since. The process of getting on the ballot is you have to get 5% of all the people who voted in the last gubernatorial election. So during the last election cycle, when
in Kingston,
the last election cycle that elected Andrew Cuomo, approximately 7,400 people voted, which meant that technically I needed 370 signatures to get on the ballot. In reality, you have to get many more, because you will be getting quite a few bad signatures. So that was what we did. We just continued walking around town. We started really walking around town with these palm cards with my platform points. I already had my website up, and that was in mid-January. And all over town, stopping, handing the card to people, talking. And then later on, I can't even remember when, sometime in June, towards the end of June was when the time came when you have about 5 weeks to gather the signatures on the ballot. And at that point, many people had known me already, so it was very difficult getting the signatures, but we were able to do it.
I mean, I saw you out at the farmers market on Saturdays talking to people and getting signatures. That's when I signed your ballot, your petition, because I think it's a really healthy, robust thing to have people who want to offer a solution be able to do so. This is not your background. You're not a politician.
Never. I've never run for class president or anything in my fraternity. None of that stuff, ever, ever, ever. I've always been kind of, I wouldn't say I'm shy. Growing up, I was shy. But I don't like being the center of attention.
Well, you're there now.
I am. That is true.
You know, there are 4 of you running for mayor in Kingston.
Well, actually, I'm not the center of attention, because I seem to be under the radar. I mean, if you read the Kingston Freeman, you'll hardly ever see my name. And then, of course, the Kingston Times is the other paper, and I think they mentioned my name once after the chamber breakfast, all the reasons why I shouldn't have been there speaking, and they spelled my name wrong besides.
But you're in this to win. You're not in this as a joke. You're in this to win.
I am. People, when I first started in mid-January, a lot of people were saying, oh, we're so happy you're running. You will elevate the conversation. And I believe I have elevated the conversation. But I'm in it more than just that. I am really in it to win. I believe I have the right tools and the right attitude. I'm not tied to any one philosophy. I'll steal ideas from everybody and incorporate them.
One of the lines on your website that I like a lot says, I'm running like I'm going to lose and will govern like I'm not going to be reelected.
That's not one of my lines.
Okay. Whose line is it?
I stole that line from one of my heroes. He is the governor of our neighboring state in Massachusetts, Duval Patrick. What's the name of that book? He just had his memoir come out about last year, and he was interviewed on one of the radio stations, and I I just loved what he had to say, and that was I stole that line from him. I think I say on the webpage I've quoted it from him.
The underlying sentiment, though, is that you get to speak your mind and not be afraid that you won't be elected, which is sometimes, the whole political process doesn't offer us that option. Let's talk about some of your platform points when we come back.
Okay, thank you.
This is Kingston Now. More with Steve Ladin and Jonesy of the Red Dog Party in a moment. Welcome back to Kingston Now. 6 days from today, the residents of the city of Kingston will head to the polls to pick a new mayor, and one of their choices will be Steve Ladin of the Red Dog Party. So Steve, what are the challenges facing Kingston, and tell us about some of your solutions to those problems?
Well, as I walk around town, the main thing you hear about is people cannot bear additional tax burdens. Of course, the cost of essential services doesn't get any less. They keep on going up and up and up. I don't know how your employer pays your medical benefits, but generally an employer will pay 50% of the medical benefits, the employee will pick up the other 50%. I worked for a time for Ulster County at the community college, and my benefits package, I only paid something like $20 every 2 weeks out of my paycheck, and that covered $5,000 per year of free dental. I never even paid a $20 charge when I went to see the dentist. Who pays that? The taxpayers pay approximately 90% of those benefits. Now, I think we should take care of our employees. I wish all private employers could afford to fully take care of their employees, but in the system we have, we can't do it. It's not sustainable. I think it's fair that as we progress in, say, my administration, we renegotiate a contract with the unions and we diminish the amount that each employee has to pay, that the city pays, while increasing the amount that the employees pay until it gets to be equitable. So in other words, if the cost of the medical insurance was reduced, say, 10% a year for each employee, in 3-4 years, we would have that 50-50 split, which I think is fair and equitable. If that's not done, we won't be able to sustain the system. In 20 years' time, the city will be bankrupt because it cannot bear that burden.
There was a report recently, an independent consultant did a study of the city of Kingston's finances and said he didn't think there were many places to cut. Do you agree with that, besides the health insurance of employees?
I haven't read the full report, to be honest. However, yes, there are other places, I believe, where you can make savings. Walking around town, every time I see a city bus, it's empty. Now, these are huge buses, full-size buses, and I never see more than 2 or 3 people. And even during, I'm around town. You see me walking around all the time, all over. I believe there can be a cost savings in making the city bus system more efficient. Perhaps it can be merged with the county bus system. I'm an advocate of public transportation. When I don't have to get in my car, I walk or I ride my bicycle. I do that all over town. Not everybody can do that. There are people in wheelchairs that don't have, there are accessibility issues. I do not want to throw them off the bus, so to speak. So I really think there are areas where we can be more efficient in delivering the services to the citizens without harming anybody.
One of the questions you ask on your website is, what kind of city should we have? What kind of city do you think Kingston should be, Steve?
I am an advocate of what is called a new urbanism. I was an architecture student back in the late 60s, and that was one of the theories that was being presented at that time. New urbanism really is a way of making a city into more of a livable place, a collection of villages where each village would be kind of a town square where senior citizens and children can meet. Maybe there's a cafe or some vendors in the street.
Well, it's just a few days left before the election. I assume that people can look forward to seeing you and Jonesy making the rounds and getting your word out. And if people want to find out more of your platform and your ideas, they can go to your website, which is? TheRedDogParty.com, and remember to RED
So it's quite extensive, the web page. I think it's there's some nice photographs there. I put forward all of my ideas without trying to satisfy anybody except what I believe is the right thing to do.
Steve Ladin, thanks for coming. Jonesy, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You're watching Kingston Now. Next up is Richard Cahill, Jr., who ran against current Mayor James Cahill 4 years ago and is back in the race again this year on the conservative line. Stay with us. This week on Kingston Now, it's a look at the candidates for mayor in next week's elections, including the man who ran against the current Mayor James Cahill in 2007, Richard Cahill, Jr. Hi, Richard.
Hi.
So what have you seen in Kingston in the last 4 years that made you want to run for mayor again?
Well, there's been so many things. We've seen crime be a major problem. We've seen, we actually saw a witness silenced, something I don't recall ever happening. We had a young man that was executed, and fortunately the district attorney, Holly Conrad, prosecuted him. I think there's still one more to go. So we've been seeing a real crime problem that has to be addressed. What we've also seen is a major change as far as home ownership. It's amazing. You think there's a lot of signs for candidates. They pale in comparison to the number of for sale signs. It's frightening. So what I've seen is Kingston spiraling downward, and I'm hopeful we can turn that around and get us rising up again.
You were not the Republicans' choice for mayor, but you did win in the primary on the Conservative Party.
That's true.
Are you concerned at all that you might split that vote against the Democrat?
Well, here's the thing. When I was interviewed by the Conservative Party, there were three of us interviewed, myself, Andy Turco-Levin, and Ron Polacco. And all of us were asked the same questions. There may have been some different follow-up, but the original questions were the same. And the question we were asked was, if you receive the Conservative nomination and we work for you and we push for you, will you run on the Conservative line regardless of what happens in the Republican primary? Now, I don't know how Andy and Ron answered, but I gave them my word I would run. So to me, it doesn't matter who I'm helping or hurting. I'm running because I gave my word to do so. My grandfather told me once, it's kind of an odd saying, but it fits the situation. He used to say, you have to keep your word. If you give your word you're going to flap your arms and fly, you better find a way to sprout feathers. And, you know, it's an odd expression, but it's the way I was raised. I gave them my word, so to me, that's what I have to do. So if it helps a candidate or hurts a candidate, it really isn't my concern.
What are the big issues? You just mentioned crime as being one of them, and the conditions in Kingston not really supporting people wanting to stay here, the for sale signs. What are some of the other issues that you see as big in Kingston? Well,
the local economy really needs some stimulus. We have a differential system. It's called homestead versus non-homestead. I would prefer to call it commercial versus residential because it really makes it more clear what it is. If you own a home, you pay X amount in taxes. If you own a business that's the same size and so forth, you're going to be paying more than double because of the differential and how they charge that. That has to be brought down because businesses are just taking off. An example I used at a recent appearance in a debate was consider the economy to be a vast ocean and the businesses are trying to swim in it. Well, Kingston, with its taxes and regulation, is putting a great millstone around their neck and saying, here, sink or swim. And most of them are saying, no, thank you, let's get out of here. We have to turn that around so we can improve the businesses because you know, people talk, one of my opponents likes to say, well, quality of life is more important than the local economy. And I think that's short-sighted. They play off each other. It is true that if you help quality of life, you're going to help the economy. But the reverse is true as well. There's a lot of houses when you go around that are in bad shape. And it's not because the people don't care. Some of them don't. There's always some deadbeats in every community. But most of them are people who are out of work, or maybe they're not getting the overtime they used to get, or their business isn't bringing in as much money, so they got to work more to make up for that, and they don't have time to do the extra things they otherwise would do, repair the shutters or trim the hedges as frequently as they otherwise would. You can improve the local economy. People can get jobs. They can get that extra overtime they want, or they can get the revenue in. Now they can do these things, or hire somebody or do it themselves. So if you help that side of the equation, you're helping quality of life, and and that's what's important for a mayor. You've got to be able to look at everything because it all fits together like an intricate puzzle. Every time you pull on one string, it affects the others, and you can't just say, well, I'm going to work here, and it's going to have no effect over here, because that's not the way it works in city government or any government for that matter.
The King's Inn is down.
Yes.
It has come down.
It has.
And now there's a spot in Midtown Kingston, and there's some controversy and some conversation about what is going to go in there and how that will affect that part of the city, which is an area that needs some attention.
Sure does.
What are your thoughts about that?
Well, what I would love to see there, it may be a bit of a pipe dream concerning the economy right now, but if we could find the resources, whether it's through federal grants or however we have to do it, I'd love to see a police substation there. I think that would really send a message to deal with crime. It would tell Midtown that we're serious about helping them. See, for many years, it used to always be when the Republicans were in charge, the few times that's been over the years, Uptown got the benefit. And when the Democrats were in charge, Downtown got the benefit. But no matter who was in charge, Midtown always got the shaft. And there is still some truth to that. I mean, I'm not going to say there aren't politicals out there fighting. I wouldn't say that. My friend Shirley would kick me in the head. But there's a lot of people who are individually who are working for Midtown. But there's never been a concerted effort, in my opinion. And there's a lot of good things going on in Midtown that I think could really benefit, like the Metropolitan Knot Hole League and the Boys Club and so forth. So it's time to get some focus over there.
Let's talk more in a moment.
All right.
More with candidate for Mayor Richard Cahill Jr. when Kingston Now continues. Welcome back to Kingston Now, and with us again is Richard Cahill Jr., the conservative pick to be the next mayor of Kingston. So Richard, what is the financial condition of the city of Kingston?
Poor.
What do we do about that?
Well,
the current mayor floated an idea a few weeks back about having to reduce garbage collection, which he quickly rescinded, and you were all over that.
Oh yeah, I was, because that makes no sense at all. Because what are people going to do? You're telling them you either have to pay extra money to have it taken away, or it's not going to be taken at all. And there are people that are just going to say, well, you know what, I'm going to put it out on the curb and it's going to sit there and it's going to draw flies. It wasn't a good idea.
But wasn't that more of a signal of the dire straits that the city is in financially?
No, I don't think so. I think that was more an attempt to try to signal the unions for the upcoming negotiation, hey, we're willing to do some radical things. I don't think the mayor ever really intended to do it. Jimmy and I don't get along sometimes, but although we've been getting along a lot better now since we're not running against each other, but I don't think he was serious about it. He might say he was, but I don't think he was. As far as what we have to do about it, the first thing we have to do is we have to make spending cuts in city government. We can't keep going with the way things are. I'll give you some examples of things that have to be cut. One, the city's economic development office. I will eliminate that. We've dumped over $1 million in the last 4 years into that office with very little results. And it's not because the staff there isn't working or that they're bad people. They're good people and they're working hard. It doesn't work because, in my opinion, it rests on a premise that government creates jobs and that government stirs the economy. I don't think that's the way it works. I think in reality, it's the private sector that spurs the economy. The job of government is to try to keep spending down, keep taxes in control, and not be a burden as far as I'm concerned. As I said before, I think government frequently is that big millstone around their neck, and we have to do as much as we can to take that away. So I will eliminate that office. I will replace it with what I had been calling an economic recovery team, but I'm now going to call an economic growth team. Still isn't flashy, but it does say what I want. I don't want just a recovery. I want a recovery and growth. And to call it the recovery and growth team is too long. But that's going to be made up of local volunteers, of people who have expertise in business, real estate, architecture, all those things that have to do with local development. I mean, you wouldn't come to, I'm an attorney in my private practice and my private life, and you wouldn't come to me to ask a medical question, all right? Well, you don't, why would you go to somebody, some government official and say, how do you grow a business? No, you go to the business people. You go to the entrepreneurs. They know how to do it. Especially if they're surviving in this economy with these taxes, they must be business geniuses to do it. So that's something I think that will help us. I'm going to be looking to make changes in the Department of Public Works. Right now we have 2 assistant superintendents. One is largely in charge of trash, not exclusively, but largely. The other is primarily in charge of the sewer treatment plant. Now, we have a trash foreman who's already in charge of trash, so that's duplicative. Then we have 2 other positions, and I always get tongue-tied. Let me see if I can get this out. 2 senior sewer plant managers that run that operation. So you don't really need to have 2 assistant superintendents. In fact, one was created years ago when the city closed the dump, and the one who was in charge of the dump was buddies with the superintendent at that time, so they created a second position for him. They're not needed. I'm going to eliminate those 2 positions, which will save us between $150,000 and $170,000. Including the salaries and the benefits and so forth. I can hire 2 or 3 laborers back and still have money left over to apply towards bringing taxes down, which will make DPW more efficient. It's kind of a novel idea. Spend less and get greater efficiency in government. It's novel. It's never been done to the best of my knowledge, but I think it'll work. But and there are other things. I mean, for example, down at the sewer treatment plant, I said there were 2, I'm not going to say the position again because I will get tongue-tied, 2 senior plant operators. You only need 1. If you change the second shift down there to a 12 to 9, you only need the one operator, and you're going to save $100,000 in overtime, because right now, between the two shifts, they have a small group of people. I think it's 7 or 8 people. They go through for about 15 or 20 minutes just to check everything. And because of the contract, they get to bill 4 hours for that. So we spend $100,000 a year on that. Changing that shift, we no longer need it. Just with the stroke of a pen, like that, that's $100,000 saved. These are the types of things you have to do to make government more efficient. Unfortunately, when efforts are made to cut government, they always cut at the bottom. When the current administration cut DPW, they cut all the laborers, people at the bottom. And when you do that, one, you're hitting the people who are making the least, but two, to make a real impact, you got to cut so many of them, you hurt your efficiency. Cut at the top, because most of them are political appointees, and they have to know if you get a job for politics, you could lose it if the times are tough. That's just the way it is. All right. Whereas cut from the bottom, you're taking the people who can least afford the hit more than anybody else. I mean, nobody can afford to lose their job unless you're Bill Gates or something like that. But to hit the people at the bottom of the scale, that to me is unfair.
Richard Cahill Jr., thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
That's it for this show. Remember, the polls open at 6 a.m. on Tuesday morning and close at 9 p.m. If you're unsure of where to vote, call the Ulster County Board of Elections at 334-5470 or go to the web address on the screen. To find out more about Steve Ladin and the Red Dog Party, go to thereddogparty.com. And to find out more about Richard Cahill and to read his blog, go to cahillformayor.com. Both candidates are also on Facebook. For Kingston Now, I'm Jimmy Buff. See you next time.